Live. My name is Anthony,
I'm Gabby.
and we are here talking about
That's all
voiceover.
we're doing.
I hope you all are having a wonderful Monday. We are, let's see, we are June 16th. It is June 16th, past the halfway mark,
Man.
and a lot of kids, I think Saturday is
Mm.
officially, isn't Saturday the first day of summer? I think.
Yes.
Yes, it
Yes,
is.
yes,
I think
yes.
Saturday's the first day of summer,
Yep.
but it has been hot. Has it not been hot? It's been hot here. It's been hot there. Rain, but it's been
Lot of
hot.
rain.
Yeah, yeah,
Lot of
yeah,
freaking rain. I'm like, oh man. Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
Well, it is good to see everybody. If you are new, make sure you hit that subscribe button and like us. If you do, please leave a comment. Tell us where you're from and any questions you might have. We love to answer questions and also use your questions for future episodes.
Hmm.
Today we are talking about
Dum
inflation.
dum dum.
Prices just keep on going up.
They do. But do
And the
ours.
question is, the question is, are we raising our prices?
Hmm.
Right? Because sometimes it just doesn't feel like we are.
Mm-mm.
So I think this would be a really good topic to talk about today.
Yeah, I'm excited about this. I feel like historically we're not great at that. We're not
No.
great at keeping up with what's happening. And I know for me, when I feel like I'm really busy, right? And I'm doing a lot of stuff, but I'm like, I don't feel like I'm making that much money.
Oh yeah.
That's the indicator, right?
Hmm.
There it is. And right now, inflation, I mean, right, it's done a number on everybody. It's
Yeah.
crazy what's happening right now. And I think, we do see a little bit of like where, you and I were talking about this, where people are like, oh, the prices will come back down. No, they won't. No, they
No,
won't. I
they
mean,
won't. They won't.
once
I
it's
mean,
up, it's up.
right. I mean, outside of a few things like, for example, gas that goes
Hmm.
up and
It
comes
fluxes,
down.
yeah, for sure.
But when prices go up, the only thing that stops is inflation. It
Hmm.
slows, well, stopping's the
Hmm.
wrong word. Right, it slows their gains, which means the rate of the prices going up will slow.
Hmm.
But these companies aren't randomly going to just lower the prices
No,
again. They just
no.
so that is, and I think that's where so much confusion of inflation with how much stuff
Hmm.
costs
Hmm.
comes, you know?
It does. And I
Yeah.
mean, voice actors, because we are a service industry, we don't want to overprice ourselves. We kind of, have those issues. But I think the big thing is we would be wise to look at and comparatively, right, skilled labor rates.
Mm.
And I
Mm.
tradesmen, literally, like what are handymen charging and plumbers and right, like we've got figures right now. I mean, it's kind of shocking, right,
Oh
where
yeah.
people are like up into like $80 an hour or
Yes.
more.
Yes.
And I think that's, but you think about that and you look at us by comparison and you go, well, yeah, right,
Oh,
that's
I mean, and just, I mean, if you look at certain things, I mean, I play a lot in the audiobook sandbox, and just from audiobook prices, I feel like even from 2017 when I,
Mhm,
2016, 2017 when I started, even from then till now, which I
mm,
guess is what, 8 years, it hit, and all the stuff we've gone over, it does not seem to have changed.
no,
The pricing is the same. Now, some people, as you get better, just like in all, you can command better prices, and
absolutely.
those prices go up, of course. But the base prices don't seem to have changed at all.
Mm-mm.
I mean, it stays shockingly, or it stayed shockingly the same. Now, that was just from me. I don't know how it was before. I came in. How was it in 2010 and 2005? I
I
mean,
I honestly feel like the standard session rate, like the base rate that you hear of $250, which is what,
yeah.
is around the union, it hasn't moved.
I mean, that's wild.
I feel like it's been the same for well over 20 years. I can't remember the last time that needle moved. And I mean, it's nuts. And to be honest, I don't even think it's actually 250. I think it's like $237
So how,
and
and then how
change.
that works,
Yeah.
right, is that's also based on criteria,
And
right? So
locality
it's
and
not
yeah.
just, right, it's based on, is it just
Mhm.
straight narration, or are you also editing your work? Are you mastering the work? Is it formatted? Then you have, so those are also,
Mhm.
it's wild. And to think about companies like Audible and Spotify and how much money they make from these, which is a big
Right.
reason why I created Academy Voices, was because in the middle ground of how much, like, it takes for us as artists to
Mhm.
get our work onto those
Mhm.
platforms, right? Then those platforms take it and they are generating
Mhm.
insane amount of money from all the art that we
Mhm.
create,
Mhm.
but yet we, end up not getting
Mhm.
that big of piece of a pie, right? And it doesn't seem to change financially, yet those other companies are making hand over fist,
So much money.
which
So much money.
which is why, like, I think it is for from an audiobook standpoint, royalty share is so hard, but also, in theory, it's so nice.
Mhm.
But, I've learned too that being in this business, you have to think of bulk, like doing things when by ourselves is a challenge.
Oh yeah.
It is a challenge, right? To grow, because these companies have realized, one or two, not much, but if we can leverage thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, we're going to make a killing,
Mhm.
right? And that's where I think from a money standpoint, we get, I don't know where it's shafted, because it's not like that, but we are up. We see this stuff and, like, how is that happening?
But are
But
you
for
wrong?
us, we
I
can't even
mean,
raise our prices.
right, but like shafted. I mean, but is that really inaccurate? I mean, sometimes we
Doesn't
do
feel
have,
like it, yeah.
look, artists have long been taken advantage of, right? We know that.
Hmm.
And we're in a unique position because we are artists who ride this weird line of like entrepreneur and art. And there are many artists that do this in other categories as well. But in voiceover across the board, we tend to agree we are entrepreneurs and,
Right, right.
artists. So it's rough. I look, I know over the years I have seen a handful of voice actors who are very astute in their business dealings, and rightfully so. Every
Hmm.
year, they send a blanket letter out to their clientele to literally say, due to, right, the cost of inflation, rising prices, the cost of goods, the cost of doing business, next year my rates will increase 10%, 15%, 20%, whatever it is. But is that enough?
Mm.
Is it enough? Because when you look at smaller jobs, right? So if you're somebody on Fiverr who's doing work for 50 bucks, is a 10% increase really going to do anything for you?
Hmm.
Is that going to help keep up? No.
Hmm.
So it really is starting to charge differently and starting to categorize yourself differently moving forward. And it's tiers, and that's sort of
Yeah.
how you have to look at your voice over business as what tier am I in and how do I get from this tier to the next tier so that you can command those bigger rates because we kind of do like we got to keep up with this stuff
Oh
or
yeah.
we're going to be in trouble.
Oh yeah, and you, right, and I think going to what you just said too, we one of the things that we work on a lot is transitioning from beginning to intermediate,
Mhm.
right, and
Mhm.
intermediate to advanced is something that
Mhm.
we're really big at VO Journey Academy, right,
Mhm.
and what those transitions look like, and a lot of the transitions, right, come from us moving to curating our own clientele,
Yes.
and there's such a difference for us financially,
Is there.
right, to getting your own clients, and we all know they pay better, there's a better relationship, um, it's and but you know that's a part of the journey, and understanding that's where we're going. So I
Mm.
just I agree, and I think that when you're on platforms or when you're on these places, you kind of are stuck with what they do. And what's interesting is, and this is where I'm going to go back and say it again, we get shafted because what these platforms do, if you've been around, and you were talking about Fiverr,
Yeah.
Fiverr has consistently raised the prices to operate for the freelancers on the platform year after
Yeah.
year. But because I hate to say it, we as artists sometimes have a hard like we struggle sometimes looking at a larger picture. We fight sometimes between ourselves when it comes to, well,
We
I just need the job, and I
do.
get it. So we end up forcing our own prices down,
Mm,
whereas the places who are taking advantage of us are like, no, you guys do whatever you want. But to do it,
mm.
we're charging you extra amount because of inflation.
Right, 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 right.
It's a very, yeah, it can really chap your backside.
But all all the companies. So, okay, let's look at the other pay to plays. I remember, when Voice123 and Voices.com hit the scene, it was like 300 and change to join,
Oh yeah.
right? And even
Oh
I,
yeah.
because I'm not on the platforms actively, right? I remember not that long ago talking to somebody and I said, well, for the 450 it costs, and they went 450, it's 600 now. I was like, holy shite.
Oh yeah.
It's same thing. They're
Yes.
consistently raising the rate of what it costs to play,
Yes.
and we're kind of staying in the same spot. So,
I will say this though. I think that it there's so much we could go into so much economically. I think about,
yeah.
unfortunately the gap that has continued to grow
Mm,
against the very wealthy and even us very just small entrepreneurs,
mm-hmm.
because a lot of times until we transition to those next clients, those larger clients, we're dealing with, honestly, a lot of times people just like us who are
Yes.
one, two people who are on a shoestring budget trying to
Mm-hmm.
every month, every penny they make goes to paying their bills for their family.
Yep.
So it's not,
Yep.
and so of course they're like, I can't afford, or in their mind, I can't afford to pay more, and we're
Yep.
thinking the same thing. So unfortunately, a lot of us, I think, are the fight. I'm always trying to make sure whenever we frame and we think about things, make sure we're targeting the right
Yeah,
you know
yeah,
what I'm
yeah,
saying,
yeah,
because
yeah, for
sometimes we
sure.
like start getting mad at the people who we shouldn't get mad at because we're all in the same boat.
Yeah.
It's the so I think that is an important aspect, and it's a sad one.
Mm-hmm.
It's a sad one.
Mm-hmm.
Which then goes against, which is why as I've gotten old and I've done this, really brings me back to wanting to come together, because I feel like togetherness there's more of, and of course this is not new. It's what they call unions. It's what they call
Mm-hmm.
people coming
Mm-hmm.
together.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
yes, we have SAG. And we have, you know what, we should put that down, Gabby. We've not talked about SAG aftra,
We haven't.
really.
We haven't. We should. Yeah, for sure.
And but I was thinking, we have a union, but honestly, that union is wonderful. I mean, there's so many things that the union in our country has done to
For sure.
legitimize what
Labor
we've
laws
done.
are a
But
big deal. Yeah.
let's be honest, it is voiceover is not the main concern of that union. I'm
No,
not
it's
saying it's
not.
not, but it is not. Let's be
No,
honest.
it's
And I
not.
think that that causes, just not things to slip through the cracks.
Of course. I mean,
Yeah.
because always for any labor union, the health and welfare of the people who are showing up to a job site every day is going to supersede
Hmm.
those of us who are doing what we do and
Right.
who are in our safe little bubble.
Right.
There's no protection there for us. I mean, because we don't have those concerns.
Hmm.
When you have grips and people that go on movie sets and stunt performers and people who literally are risking their lives to make
Yes.
entertainment, they come first.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's just a thought. So that's why I always like I like collectively coming together with as many
Mhm.
people, which is why I love
Mhm.
VO Journey Academy. I love Academy Voices. I always feel like many voices, we have so much more, you know, power together. We do
Mhm.
have a question, or John said, "Can a person join in the course at any time?" I ask because I become a victim of the economic climate. I'm assuming. Do you mean the VO Journey Academy?
Yeah,
that
I
course?
think
Of
so.
course,
I think
absolutely. And actually,
so.
this is a fantastic time to join
Hmm.
because we have our new semester coming up in just a couple weeks away.
Yeah,
So this is a fantastic time to join.
yeah.
But if you can't join now, can you join later? Of course. The way we have it all set up, you can join at any time.
Hmm.
Anytime. Yeah. Um, let's
So,
see. Dylan.
how
Oh,
often do you think
yeah.
people should be evaluating, right? How often they're raising their rates and communicating with clients about that sort of thing.
Sure. Well, I think, you know, from a 20,000 foot view economically, we look at it from year to year on a back scale, right? Like how much did this year over year did inflation rise, right? We look at that. Now you could argue it also we numbers come out monthly as well and quarterly.
Yeah.
I always think the first thing, I mean, if let's be like, I remember the first thing I ever did when I was trying to, because I didn't know anybody, I didn't know, I was trying to say, well, how much should I charge? Like for
Hmm.
my
Hmm.
service, like if you didn't know anything, anybody, any rate
It's
guide or
crazy out
anything,
there.
how would you begin? Almost like what Gabby said. I took the path like Gabby said about hourly. And I think, well, how much do you charge an hour? And then I looked and I said, okay, well, so what I did was I took my current job that I was in, I was a teacher. I was like, how much do I make an hour? You know what I mean? So at the time it was around like 25, $30 an hour. So, I was like, okay, well, that's an hour. Okay. Does now that's what I make an hour. Now that's guaranteed in a sense that I would working, uh, you know, 7 to 8 hours a day.
Right.
So, that was umpteen hundred, $200 or whatever a day. So, needing to understand my service and then what my costs were, how much then would I need to charge if you could average and say, let's just say I would be lucky and have a job a day,
Hmm.
right? So that means that that job, even if it took me 10, 15 minutes, still needed to generate some kind of daily wage. And
Hmm.
this is probably where I think is a challenge with a lot of us because there was times when I was like, well, it's only 5 minutes.
Right.
So 5 minutes really shouldn't cost me a lot. But then you argue that's true, but if that's the only 5 minute job you have in a week, I mean,
But
does it, where does that, you know what I'm saying? So
I
that's where I
do.
first started and it was a challenge.
But I love that you started with that breakdown. I did the
Hmm.
same thing
Hmm.
because it's pragmatic. We can't possibly, I mean, look, I've long said, right, I hate numbers. Please don't make me do math. Please, no. Right? I hate that. But you can't own a business and not look at the
Right,
numbers. You have to look at the economics of what you're doing. And it is wise to take that step to make a breakdown and go, okay, how much do I need to make daily? How much do I need to make hourly, weekly? Look at those because that's going to help you to
right,
understand how to charge and how to
right.
price your services.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, and also I did something too, just real quick, and I know we had but one of the thing I did too was I looked at also, doctors. So I'm like, well, how much does a doctor make an hour, right? And then at the time, and they were
and you
average, and it's
called your
interesting. I
mom.
haven't, right, right. I called my mom. Well, now she made right, and the thing with them though is that goes, continues to go
Yeah,
up and up.
for sure.
But and that's
For
with
sure.
inflation too.
Mhm.
They all get raises with
Absolutely.
inflation, but I mean, I think the average like general doctor at the time was like 90 to $120 an hour. You know what I mean? And you start thinking, so then all of a sudden, the question of what are you worth comes out. Do you feel like you are worth
Such a beautiful
that?
question.
Or a doctor, right? And then do you feel your services? Now, I've always had a personal challenge with the use of those words
Mm,
because I never want to tie my worth to money. But I think that service wise
mm,
and what we do, we have to tie what is the worth of our service at that given moment,
agreed.
right? And is it worth this commanding this price? So, that's where but it's a very emotional.
Oh,
When you agree, Gabby, it's a very
oh,
emotional topic because when you start talking about worth, people start to think, well,
oh.
I myself am worth incalculable, and that's
But
true.
but that's not always the case. I would love to sit here and say that every voice actor I've ever worked with has an inflated sense of self and right all no. I meet so many of us that are like, "Well, I'm brand new and I'm not that good and and I'm like, stop that,
Hmm.
right? You I don't like that game. I don't like when actors are like, "Oh, I'm not worth as much as
Right.
you are,"
Right.
because who says?
Right.
Crazy town, right? We do
Right.
the same job. We offer the same thing.
Hmm.
My experience does not necessarily make me more valuable
Hmm.
than someone else. So
Hmm.
I don't like that. I wish voice actors as a whole
Hmm.
were more um what's the word, right? Just confident
Confident.
and yeah, and came in with a greater sense of self. Um
And I do think we're touching on something that I believe, even from when I started, the entire industry has battled with itself, with others, for a long, at least
yeah.
since I've been in. I'm sure Gabby's been doing it forever, or a long time at least, especially when the internet came about,
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
there was not as probably closeness anymore because people could be anywhere,
Mhm.
right? So
Yeah.
you missed out on that, us coming together
Yeah.
and an agreement together, we move forward. But I do think that, that argument then spurs other ones outside of it, like for saying, for example, Nike. Why are we paying so much for a shoe that we know actually costs extremely little and sadly is probably being made in not good environments?
Yeah.
And, that's, we do, like, we pay because of the name and because of the status. So there
Yeah.
is something to be said about excuse me,
What?
brand, right? So this, and which is something you love to talk about, and
Mhm.
how that brand does help. So I think there's the part of this where we as people and fellow artists understand how important it is to make sure we know we're valuable.
For
At the same
sure.
time, there's also us as business owners, which understand the reality of business.
Yes.
And I think the synergy of those two is very important to moving forward,
It
right?
is. And can I just say, I think we were both afraid that this episode was going to be a little bit of a downer, but
I
I think we've turned it around
yeah,
beautifully. Because it
yes.
really is. It's at the end of the day, knowing your worth and, honoring both sides of the craft of
Hmm.
acting and also the entrepreneurial spirit. Couple of quick questions looking at the chat. Dylan, that's so cute. He said, I don't know if I feel seen or attacked by this live, but it definitely speaks to where I am trying to jump into cultivating my own clients. And that, I think,
Yes.
is a beautiful topic for tomorrow
Ooh, I
that we
love
could
it.
explore more.
Yes.
Um, and
Yes.
also, I'm just looking. John commented really quickly. He said, "Gabby, imposter syndrome? Question mark? Yeah, kinda. Yeah, because I think beginners often feel that for sure.
Oh, definitely. Well, listen, everybody. This was good. I'm very happy. Yes, because we were. I was like, oh, inflation, but
Yeah.
it's actually, I
No.
think, it got right. Know that value and know the service, and then know also what you want to work towards.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a wonderful thing. And so I love our topic for tomorrow, where we're talking about starting the journey of getting your own clients. Very excited. You
Yes.
guys have a wonderful, wonderful day. Check out VO Journey Academy. It's a great time to be with us and to be around a community who talks about these things and
All the time.
nurtures them,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
Bye, everybody. Have a
Bye,
good
guys.
one. Goodbye. Goodbye. All right. We
That's
are
great.
stop. Let's see if it's stopping there.